Good morning to you and welcome to Penn Vicarage on this Tuesday morning. Lovely to see you, and as always, thank you so much for joining us as we continue our journey through the book of Exodus. And today we're in chapter 26, which is all about the construction of the tabernacle, which is the place where tabernacle means dwelling, a place where God was with his people in particular. God was especially with his people. I should advise you, it's about 40 verses long and it's quite long-winded, but if you just bear with me, listen to the chapter and I'll give you some really good thoughts about it afterwards. So here goes, Exodus chapter 26. Moreover, you shall make the tabernacle with 10 curtains, fine twisted linen, and blue, purple, and crimson yarns, and make them with cherubim skillfully worked into them. The length of each curtain shall be 28 cubits, and the width of each curtain 4 cubits, and the curtains shall be of the same size. 5 curtains shall be joined to one another, and the other 5 curtains shall be joined to one another. You shall make loops of blue on the edge of the outermost curtain in the first set, and likewise you shall make loops on the edge of the outermost curtain of the second set. You shall make 50 loops on the one curtain. You shall make 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that's in the second set. The loops shall be opposite one another. You shall make 50 clasps of gold, and join the curtains to one another with the clasps, so that the tabernacle may be one whole. You shall also make curtains of goat's hair for a tent over the tabernacle. You shall make 11 curtains. The length of each curtain shall be 30 cubits, the width of each curtain 44 cubits, and the 11 curtains shall be of the same size. You shall join 5 curtains by themselves, and 6 curtains by themselves, and the 6th curtain you shall double over it at the front of the tent. You shall make 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that is the outermost in one set, and 50 loops on the edge of the curtain that is outermost in the second set. You shall make 50 clasps of bronze, and put the clasps into the loops, and join the tent together, that it may be one whole. The part that remains of the curtains of the tent, the half curtain that remains, shall hang over the back of the tabernacle. The cubit on the one side, and the cubit on the other side of what remains of the length of the curtains of the tent, shall hang over the sides of the tabernacle, on this side and that side, to cover it. You shall make for the tent a covering of tanned ram skins, and an outer covering of fine leather. You shall make upright frames of acacia wood for the tabernacle. 10 cubits shall be the length of the frame, and a cubit and a half of the width of each frame. There shall be 2 pegs in each frame to fit the frames together. You shall make for these for all the frames of the tabernacle. You shall make the frames of the tabernacle 20 frames for the south side. You shall make 40 bases of silver under the 20 frames, 2 bases under the first frame for its first 2 pegs, and 2 bases for the next frame for its 2 pegs. And for the north side of the tabernacle, on the north side 20 frames, and on there 40 bases of silver, 2 bases under the first frame, and 2 bases under the next frame. And for the rear of the tabernacle westward, you shall make 6 frames. You shall make 2 frames for the corners of the tabernacle in the rear. They shall separate beneath, but shall be joined at the top at the first ring. It shall be the same with both of them. They shall form the 2 corners. So there shall be 8 frames with their bases of silver, 16 bases, 2 bases under the first frame, 2 bases under the next frame. You shall make bars of acacia wood, 5 for the frames of the one side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the frames of the other side of the tabernacle, and 5 bars for the frames of the side of the tabernacle at the rear westward. The middle bar, halfway up the frames, shall pass through it from end to end. You shall overlay the frames with gold, and it shall make the rings of gold, the bars of gold, with gold. Then you shall erect the tabernacle according to the plan for which that you are shown on the mountain. You shall make a curtain of blue, purple, and twisted yarns, and fine twisted linen. It shall be made with cherubim, skillfully worked into it. You shall hang on it 4 pillars of acacia laid with gold, which have 5 hooks of gold, and rest on 4 bases of silver. You shall hang the curtain under the clasps, and bring the ark of the covenant in there, within the curtain, and the curtain shall separate for you the holy place from the most holy. You shall put the mercy seat on the ark of the covenant in the most holy place. You shall set the table outside the curtain, and the lampstand of the south side of the tabernacle opposite the table, and you shall put the table on the north side. There shall be a screen for the entrance to the tent, of blue, purple, and crimson yarns, and a fine twisted linen embroidered with needlework. You shall make for the screen 5 pillars of acacia, and overlay them with gold, and with their hooks shall be of gold, and you shall cast 5 bases of bronze for them. And this is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Phew. Okay, so what do we have here? Well, firstly, if you want to kind of what you've essentially got, if you want to see it properly, if you just Google, tabernacle in Exodus or something like that, you'll see it all, in a diagram in front of you. So if you want to see it for yourself, just do that. Essentially, what you've got here is what a commentary describes as a fancy tent. It's a tent which is put in the middle of a courtyard, and in this tent there's a dividing it down the middle. On one side you've got the holy place, the other side you've got the Holy of Holies. And in the Holy of Holies was kept the Ark of the Covenant, which is essentially God's treasure chest, and in it were kept the the tablets of the Ten Commandments, some manna, and also Aaron's rod. That's what was kept in there, this treasure chest. So essentially, you've got this fancy tent divided down the middle, holy place on one side, Holy of Holies on the other, and then you've got like a courtyard around it. Let's say, if you want to see pictures of it, have a look at it on Google it, and you'll see what it looks like. But I suppose you're kind of thinking that all sounds jolly deep, but what does it mean to us? What's it kind of all about? Well, I just want to say just two or three things really about it. Firstly, this: what you had here was this place where where God was, and this place went around, and they put this tent down, and the people and their tents, the place where they lived around it. They used to live around it. And when they went into battle, the Ark of Covenant went first. Now, I suppose what I think this means is, honestly, they've got God at the centre of what they're doing. They put this tent down. They erected this tabernacle place, and they put all their tents around it in concentric circles. The point being, as I said, that God is at the centre of everything they did. And I think there's a really important illustration for us here, the importance of keeping God at the centre of everything we do. To what extent do we allow God to guide us in what we do, as I say, with our hopes and dreams? To what extent do we allow God at the centre of our ambitions and our hopes? To what extent is God at the centre of what we do with our time and with our money and with our resources and so on like that? And I think what is really significant here is that this tabernacle, they put it in front of them. They put the Ark of the Covenant in front of them when they went into battle. God was at the forefront. And they also, when they lived in a place, they put God in the middle and they lived around God. So I think let's firstly see the importance of putting God at the centre, and let's make sure that we in our lives, listen to us, let's make sure we put God at the centre. We put God at the centre of everything we do too. The second thing here to notice is that obviously this is a tent. And, I don't know how good you are at erecting tents in campsites and things, but the thing with a tent is it's movable, and it can be moved from place to place. And as the people moved around, the tabernacle went as well. And I do think there's something quite special, because something about special. I mean, what we tend to do, what we tend to like, to be honest with us, our natural tendency is to like buildings. And it's not just the Church of England. We love our buildings, don't we? We love our churches and so on. And I love our church. I love St. Bart's and St. Anne's too. Of course I do, very much. They're beautiful buildings, and they point us towards God and so on. And I know all that. But the great thing about this tent, this movable tent, this tabernacle, is that it was movable. It was nimble. It could be moved. It could move with the times. And when God moved one place, when God wanted to move, when God told them to move, the tent went with them. If you built a brick building, that can't happen. And I think there's something, beg your pardon, very special in the fact that this tabernacle was movable around. It was nimble. It's similar in Ezekiel, and I think it's chapter 1, I think it is, when he sees this vision of the wheels within wheels, and that it moves around, and it's movable, it's flexible. And our faith should be as well. We should move around too. Later on, of course, when under Solomon they build the temple, there's a certain kind of reluctance. You feel like a kind of reluctance with God that I think you get the impression God quite liked it with the tent, because it was movable around and it wasn't fixed and it wasn't solid. Likewise, interesting, isn't it? When Jesus appears in the Transfiguration, what's Peter's first reaction? Lord, should we build 3 buildings for you? One for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. We tend to get this, and we tend to get something good, and we tend to try and keep it. Whereas actually, our faith really needs to move with us. Our faith needs to move with the times and move with God. So firstly, you've got the fact that God is at the center of everything they did, and God should be at the center of everything we do too. Secondly, you've got that that it's flexible, that it's movable, and in our faith, so should we. The other interesting thing is, though, is to do with the Ark of the Covenant. If you read it carefully, the Ark of the Covenant, which must have been a beautiful treasure chest, was actually very, very, very covered. When it was moved around, it was covered up, and when it was stationary, it was covered around all these tents. The question is, why didn't God want them to see the Ark of the Covenant? There's kind of a couple of reasons for this. It's been suggested. One is that they didn't want the Ark itself to become an idol. Ultimately, worship God, not a box. And there may have been some concern that actually, if this beautiful box had been visible, people might have worshipped the box instead of worshipping God. And the other thing is, in a sense, the people never saw what was inside it. They never saw Aaron's rod. They never saw the leftover manna. They never saw the tablets of stone and so on. They had to kind of trust. They had to have faith that they were in there. And in a sense, it's as we have to have faith. We have to walk by faith, not by sight. So in a sense, so did they as well. They knew the ark was there, and they knew by faith because they'd been told, and the Bible told them and so on that it was in there. But they didn't know that yet. They had to walk by faith and not just by sight. And actually, so do we today. So we have this long description this morning of this beautiful tent. And by I say, if you want to look at it again, just Google it. You'll see what it looks like. Notice that though that God's tabernacle was at the center of everything they did, and they lived around that. Notice also that it was movable, and so should we be. But also to recognise that us, like them, we have to walk by faith and not by sight. We worship God. We don't worship a box, and to make sure we keep Him at the centre of everything we do. Friends, I hope that's helpful. God bless you. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for sitting through the 40 verses of Exodus 26. But I think you'll agree with me that it's really helpful stuff, and may you know God at the centre of everything you do today too. God bless.